For a long time, the notion of matrimony carried the promise of ultimate security in my mind. Such a perspective might strike people as peculiar, especially those who grew up under the impression that unions within the Amish faith are cold, transactional, or entirely coerced. Public perception tends to split down the middle, with many envisioning severe regulations and deeply despondent partnerships, while others idealize a harmonious, basic existence completely insulated from the complexities of contemporary life. In reality, the truth exists in a space far removed from either extreme. Picture finding yourself at 19 years of age, having spent your entire youth fulfilling every single anticipation placed upon your shoulders. Your day begins well before the sun breaches the horizon, defined by rigorous labor and a learned habit of remaining silent whenever elders are speaking. Out of nowhere, a singular inquiry begins to follow you everywhere you turn, as everyone starts pressing to know when you intend to wed. The motivation behind this curiosity is not a celebration of you discovering your soulmate, but rather the simple fact that your time has arrived. When a cohesive society collectively anticipates a specific choice from you, formulating a refusal can come to feel nearly impossible. Having been raised within the strict boundaries of an Old Order Amish community in Ohio, my youth was largely dictated by traditions preserved across multiple generations. My education took place inside a single-room schoolhouse, my transportation relied on a horse and buggy, and a foundational lesson of my early life was that yielding to authority always superseded personal desire. This perspective does not come from an external observer analyzing a foreign culture. I personally navigated these exact boundaries, observed my peers enter matrimony, and eventually walked down the aisle myself. A significant portion of my life was spent under the absolute conviction that I fully grasped the inner workings of Amish marital dynamics. A prevalent assumption is that these unions are entirely arranged by the community, while an equally common belief suggests that youth possess uninhibited autonomy to pick their own partners. Neither viewpoint accurately captures the reality of the situation. The narrative unfolding here deviates significantly from the conventional tales outsiders are told, shedding light instead on the realities that exist beneath the shared quietude of the community. Gaining insight into this dynamic fundamentally alters how one views the institution of marriage within this culture. Strictly speaking, formal arranged marriages did not exist where I grew up, meaning no parental figures handpicked a groom for me, nor did a bishop dictate who my spouse would be. Even so, selecting a partner did not involve freedom in the manner conventional society defines it. The framework of everyday existence was dictated by the Ordnung, a comprehensive body of community principles and societal demands that left almost no aspect of life untouched. Naturally, the institution of marriage fell under this governance, as it was universally understood that courtship must remain strictly within the boundaries of the faith. Furthermore, entering into marriage was viewed as the inevitable next step following baptism. No religious leader ever hovered over my shoulder demanding a specific date for a wedding, yet the trajectory everyone was meant to follow remained unmistakable to all. Long before I reached an age where dating was permissible, I recognized this pattern. Watching young girls mature into women, enter courtships, progress to engagements, and ultimately marry. This sequence played out endlessly around me, requiring no explicit explanation because the anticipation was woven into the very fabric of our environment. The act of marrying was also inextricably linked to one's standing as a formal member of the faith. Within most Amish circles, baptism takes place as adolescence draws to a close, and once a person undergoes this ritual, they answer to the church leadership in a profoundly serious way. Choosing to walk away from the community after taking this step resulted in severe ramifications, a reality that occupied my thoughts frequently. In contrast to contemporary dating, our courtships were remarkably private affairs, with young people typically getting to know one another at religious services, youth singings, and communal gatherings. On the surface, these bonds appeared to mature at a highly deliberate, gradual pace. Beneath that placid exterior, however, was a far more agonizing internal reality characterized by a perpetual awareness that your life choices were constantly being weighed by others. People watched your actions, observed your interactions, and discussed your status. While this talk was generally rooted in benevolence, the scrutiny persisted regardless, and at times, that ambient social expectation transformed into a binding rule of its own. My own courtship began at 18 with a quiet, diligent, and highly regarded young man named Samuel. He possessed the genuine regard of everyone around him, earning the enthusiastic backing of my parents, the church congregation, and our neighbors alike. I held him in high regard as well, or at least I thoroughly convinced myself that I did. The vast majority of our interactions took place in the wake of Sunday church services, alongside occasional moments together in the buggy during the journey home from evening singings. Those winter nights possessed a distinct, enduring length, and I can still vividly recall the sound of horses trudging through snow-laden pathways while the glow of our lantern danced across the carriage windows. Samuel never displayed an ounce of cruelty. He was consistently courteous and remarkably stable, which is a vital distinction to make. This account does not feature an antagonist, and for a long stretch, our courtship advanced along a trajectory that mirrored what everyone considered entirely typical. Eventually, inquiries began to surface, starting as subtle hints before evolving into much more direct questions. My mother openly pondered whether I could envision establishing a household alongside him. An aunt probed about the timing of a formal commitment, and a neighbor offered a knowing smile while noting her anticipation of impending wedding notices. Taken individually, each remark appeared completely benign, yet their cumulative effect generated a massive weight. I caught myself constantly tracking the passage of time, weighing the burden of social expectations, and noting how many individuals took it for granted that the outcome was already decided. During a summer evening following a youth gathering, Samuel and I found ourselves sitting outdoors, while the fragrance of freshly mowed hay hung in the air and the sounds of children playing drifted from nearby. It was in that moment he inquired whether we should plan to wed before the year reached its end. A sudden paralysis washed over me, not out of any dislike for him, but due to the jarring epiphany that I had absolutely no clarity regarding my own desires. The realization struck terror into me. Because I had spent my formative years perfecting the art of submission, identifying my own internal feelings proved to be an immense struggle. For several weeks, I actively attempted to suppress these doubts, rationalizing that hesitation was a universal prelude to marriage, that cold feet were natural, and that affection would eventually blossom after the vows were spoken. Despite these self-assurances, the unease refused to dissipate. I would lie awake in the dark, listening to the subtle creaks of the structure around me, the settling of a door, footsteps on the floorboards above, the wind rustling outside, while a singular, persistent inquiry kept echoing in my mind. I kept wondering what it would mean if the existence laid out before me was not actually the one I wished to lead, though I never dared to utter such a thought aloud during that period. 4 months down the road, on a bleak Sunday afternoon in November when the sky hung low and gray over stripped, barren fields, Samuel asked for my hand. My immediate reaction to his proposal was telling, and it remained etched in my mind for years afterward. Instead of looking deep within myself for an answer, I cast my gaze outward. I evaluated the heavy expectations, the desires of my family, the pressure of the community, and the collective relief that would wash over everyone if I acquiesced. With those external factors guiding me, I gave my assent. Our formal engagement spanned half a year, a period marked by widespread celebration and joy from everyone around me, even as my own internal voice grew progressively fainter. 3 weeks prior to the scheduled wedding date, I awoke in the profound stillness that precedes the dawn. Sitting motionless on the edge of my mattress in the quiet house, I did nothing but exist in that space for nearly an hour. It was during those moments that a sudden, piercing clarity washed over me. I recognized that entering into matrimony with Samuel would condemn me to a lifetime of trying to convince myself of a choice I already fundamentally questioned. My breathing grew audible in the silence as a cold sensation gripped my hands and my stomach knotted tightly. No grand confrontation or catastrophic event took place. There was only the arrival of a single, unassailable truth. I could not go through with it. That very afternoon, I sought out Samuel in a private moment to communicate that I was calling off the wedding. My voice trembled as the color completely drained from his face. A heavy silence hung between us for several beats before he offered a solitary, understanding nod. The wave of liberation that washed over me arrived hand in hand with an overwhelming sense of ignominy and dread. My decision left people deeply disappointed and utterly perplexed, prompting a number of individuals to withdraw from speaking to me for a duration of time. Yet, for the first time in memory, I was living authentically, and that shift altered the entire course of my existence. The true watershed moment of my life was not the simple act of breaking off an engagement, but rather the deeper comprehension of why I had come so incredibly close to the altar in the first place. I had conflated the enthusiastic validation of my community with my own internal desires. This epiphany crystallized within the confines of a dark bedroom before the sunrise, independent of any direct intervention by a bishop, a specific regulation, or a particular person. Decades of ingrained social expectations had so thoroughly conditioned my cognitive processes that disentangling my genuine yearnings from the collective aspirations of those around me felt nearly impossible. Once that reality became visible, it could never be obscured again. The most painful realization was discovering that this immense social pressure had consistently arrived cloaked in profound affection, an insight that completely altered how I viewed my entire past. In retrospect, the reality of Amish marriage diverges significantly from the notions harbored by external observers. The vast majority of couples within that world maintained a deep, genuine regard for one another, successfully fostering stable environments and leading purposeful lives built on authentic devotion. I maintain an enduring respect for the foundational tenets that anchored those relationships, as principles of fidelity, duty, communal service, and familial dedication held profound significance for the people practicing them. My conflict was never rooted in those core ideals, but rather in the extreme difficulty of interrogating systemic expectations once they become seamlessly integrated into the fabric of daily survival. A social structure can exert immense coercive pressure even when every single participant behaves with genuine warmth and kindness. Reconciling those two simultaneously true realities required years of reflection on my part. The community members surrounding me harbored no malicious intent whatsoever, yet I still absolutely required the isolation necessary to decipher my own inner truth. Ultimately, the faintest whisper in our minds can turn out to be the most vital one we ever face, forcing us to ask whether our convictions are truly our own, or simply the lifetime accumulation of what has been expected of us. Before this reflection concludes, a final thought remains to be considered. Have you ever found yourself progressing down a specific life path purely out of a sense of obligation, only to discover down the line that the choice never truly belonged to you? If these reflections resonated with your own experiences or prompted you to examine that question in your own life, consider passing these thoughts along to someone else who might benefit from them, or sharing your own journey of navigating external expectations.